My name is Christian Lee. I'm a Chartered Town Planning Consultant. I've been advising for around 25 years on town planning to private developers, solicitors, householders and people who want planning applications to be approved, the applicants and objectors. I'm going to present in this short video my tips for speaking at a planning committee. Whether a planning application goes to committee depends on each council's own procedure. It's usually if an application is recommended for approval but there are a lot of objections, or it might be for controversial or important applications. Councillors can also recommend applications go to committee themselves. Usually a planning committee is held in a physical event in a hall of council offices, but at the moment it's often online, of course, at Zoom or Teams, and it's likely that this routine will carry on for a while, even in the future. There'll probably be a mix of physical and virtual events. If you have the opportunity to speak at a planning committee, then you should take it. If you're objecting to an application which is up for approval, you can seek to try and persuade councillors to refuse permission. If an application is up for refusal and you're objecting, then your presence can reassure the councillors why there is public support for that refusal. But if you're in support of an application, if you're the applicant and an application is up for refusal, you can try and persuade them to approve, or of course if it's up for approval, again your reassurance can give the councillors the ability to grant permission for what you want. The first important thing to do on planning committees is make sure you register to speak on time. Councils will have different deadlines. The committee clerk will help you. They'll have an email or phone number contact. You must pay attention to when you have to register to speak. If you miss that, you're not going to be able to speak. Also, find out from the committee clerk if anyone else is registered to speak and what process there is if that happens. Do you have time which you shared? Is there the first person to register to speak? Do you have to make contact with other people who speak? Make sure you know what's happening. The clerks are very good at providing advice on this. Make sure you prepare for the committee. Read the committee report. This is going to be on the council website, usually released around about a week, 5 days or so before the committee event itself. You need to read that because your speech must respond to that report. You might want to support points raised by it, correct some facts, add extra points. Really must prepare and read that report carefully. When you're deciding what to say in your speech, make sure you know that the planning applications are determined against the council's development plan and the government's planning policies. Tie any points to that. Be concise. You might have a lot of points to make, but keep to the main ones. Avoid long descriptions about irrelevant matters such as the process of planning, criticising planners, your neighbours, planning system. Just keep on the points which you know are relevant and keep it concise. Remember that councillors can make different decisions to planners, so say what's important to you. Just like you need to prepare, you need to practice. Write down what you want to say, either in notes or in full. Don't try to wing it on the day. And be aware of the time limit. This is strictly enforced. Practice reading out your speech. Overrunning speeches or trying to garble out 2 pages of text in the dying seconds of a speech are some of the most common ways which objective speeches fall flat on the night. Practice again and practice. If you see there's something wrong on the agenda, if there's something you really want to emphasise, you might need to write to the planning officer and the councillors, or both. You might need to send in some information or correction on facts. There's an advantage in doing this in advance of the meeting date, so planners and councillors can agree with anything you're correcting before the debate. It doesn't have to be decided on the night. But if you want to do this, check with the committee clerk if this is allowed. Some councils allow this contact with planning officers and councillors before, some are a little bit more hesitant, so check before you send off anything. Find out how the process is run before the committee meeting. Ask the committee clerk how this is done. Usually the system is that the planning application is introduced by the planning officer, there's a speech from the objectors and then a speech from the applicant. When it's your turn, don't try to hand out or show anything at the meeting unless you've been told you can do so, because it won't be accepted. Be flexible in the evening, listen carefully to what people have said before you and be prepared to adapt your speech. Even though your speech has been written down first, make sure you pay attention to what has been said because you might have to adapt. Many speeches fall flat again because they don't pick up on relevant points and address what someone has said earlier. Always be polite to the councillors, the planners, the applicant, the objectors. There's no advantage in being rude to anyone. Councillors might ask questions of those who spoke at the committee meeting, not always, but be prepared to respond to any councillors' questions that come to you after your speech. The process then is that the councillors debate the application and make the decision. Speaking at a planning committee is worth it. Councillors aren't bound by planning officers' recommendation to approve or refuse. Planning is often a matter of judgment, so it's completely fine in law for councillors to place different weight on factors. I've spoken at countless meetings over the years and persuaded applications which are up for refusal to be granted, and on behalf of objectors got major applications refused even though they've been recommended for approval. You need to concentrate on planning matters, you need to be concise, you need to prepare, and you need to practice. For further advice on how to speak at planning committees and how to get your voice heard during the planning process, you can see my books, which are available on Amazon from the links below.